The first Descendants. Bro, what the f? Every now and then there comes a game that based on CGI cutscenes alone and gameplay videos seems just too good to be true. Add to that the promise of being free to play and you have a recipe for an all-time great in the making. The first Descendants looks to be exactly one of those games with its fast-paced third-person shooting akin to that of a Warframe and a loot system that is very reminiscent of Destiny with its reliance on good stat rolls instead of having just hard to find weapons in general. All seemed set for greatness until, well, the game released and it straight up struggled out the gate because of performance issues on both software and hardware levels. Gamers were getting kicked out due to server issues as well as experiencing uneven frame rates and stuttering, to which the devs have thankfully been patching harder than that one pair of pants you have in your closet. But with a premise as promising as the one in the first Descendants, does the game live up to the hype? What is the experience like for the solo player? And of course, is it fun? Well, that's what we're here to find out, literally. So subscribe if you're new and let's get on with whatever the early hours were like in the game, and if of course you should be playing it. As always, I do want to hear your thoughts on the game in the comments down below, but one thing we can all happily agree on, and that's the premise of the game. You are, well, you guessed it, one of at least 198,912 descendants in the world of Igris. You, like all other players playing this game of course, are destined to become the first descendant.
I am the chosen one. Somebody had to do it.
As you can talk to what is called the guide or a guide, this mysterious lady being that will over the course of the game help you uncover the secrets of the world and the Iron Heart. No, not that Iron Heart, but instead these magical orbs or hearts, if you will, that if you collect all three of them at once, the world is saved from the Colossi, who are these world-destroying giants that, look, I wasn't really paying much attention on the story because it's all so convoluted and filled with sci-fi mumbo-jumbo that someone else can undoubtedly explain way better than me, and actually do it some justice if I'm being perfectly honest. But what I do know is that in your way are the Vulgus, this race of alien creatures that you get to shoot about a lot, and that's what most people care about, because even though the story looks interesting and the cutscenes are surprisingly well made, the real meat of the game is in the moment-to-moment gameplay, of course. Now, once you've selected your character out of the 3 classes available and finished the tutorial of grappling, shooting, and the usage of skills, you are thrown into the world where you can start to take on quests and level up your character. Now, that's of course if you manage to make it that far and not get kicked out of the servers for whatever reason whatsoever. Now, I'm only joking, of course. Don't cancel me on this one, because since the release they have updated the game quite a few times already, and thankfully the game does play way better than what it did even 2 days earlier when I was playing it, because that shit was choppy, let me tell you. Anyway, gameplay is split between walking to the objective and then shooting the place up, broski. It doesn't really need to be any more fancy than that, to be perfectly honest. For the solo broskis out there, everywhere apart from the main hub area, you can just freely choose to spawn alone and make the sessions private, which is a really nice addition because the journey does become a lot more personal when you're just there alone, roaming and shooting. Otherwise, you'll bump into other players running around, as well as have the ability to join their missions or have just randoms join your missions. Maybe in the future they'll add this big empty plot of land and a mount or multiple mounts that they can monetize, but for now at least all you have are your legs and the grappling hook, which I think most people think it's only used for fighting the big mechanical bosses, because I don't really see a lot of people using them, but it can be used for traversal and make it so much more fun. It also works really well inside of combat because it does get pretty hectic for the solo player out there, and the difficulty is there for most people who enjoy a good challenge, especially since at least initially it feels like most enemies just straight up beeline it towards you instead of taking any kind of tactical positions to get the upper hand. Now, I'm not certain if the difficulty does scale based on how many people are in the group because, well, I do play solo after all, but the amount of people shooting at your lonesome ass at any given time does make it a little bit challenging, I do gotta say that. So far, the missions aren't impossible to do solo, and while the difficulty is there at times, they're never like Radon levels of difficulty, if you know what I'm saying. Also, Elden Ring. I did a video on that. Go check it out. So in this sense, it's really nice to have the grappling hook to kind of zip away and get to a safe place to either reload or reset before locking the back in. Now another thing you can do after you grapple away is get your bearings and subscribe to the channel. So ignoring the god-awful transition, if you've liked the video so far, then do click that subscribe button as it would help me out a ton. Anyway, let's get back to the gameplay. Now you get given skills based on the character of choice, and they unlock the more you level up, so there's this constant feeling of progression on top of the bog standard season pass bullshit that a lot of games love to implement these days. The shooting itself does have a good bit of oomph to it, which I generally do like, even though it could have maybe a bit more feeling behind it, especially with the heavier weapons or the shotguns, but in general it does enough to keep you interested in the shooting, as there is a fair bit of variety in how you can dispatch an enemy. There's this Destiny style ammo system in the game that lets you choose 3 different active weapons that either use the same or different pools of ammo, and you can of course mix and match to your liking, and I really did enjoy that part because I for one just love changing things up. There's also this mastery system in your class system that you can level up next to your normal levels, and mastery level is basically passive perks and abilities for your character that might come in handy in the tougher fights later on in the game. To this gameplay point, I do want to add that I was half expecting fighting those big ass monsters quite more often than what I ended up playing. You do spend a good minute before you're actually thrust into the set piece fight with one of those big monsters. In the meanwhile, you'll fight all kinds of different foot soldiers that spawn in your way. Some of them are tougher than others, and there are some bosses thrown in there as well, and those tougher enemies usually have like a different colored name or are just bigger in size. Now while they do come in all shapes and sizes, shooting and using skills still work perfectly perfect, man.
You're a wizard, Harry.
They don't require that much tacticizing to overcome, and I do hope tacticizing is a real word. One thing that did surprise me early on was the amount of loot in the game, broski. There is a lot of loot in the game, bro, straight up. So much loot in the game. From weapons to defensive items to mods that you can equip on your suit for buffs, there is enough to make the weak-hearted be overwhelmed. Like, you really need a heart of iron to be able to micromanage all the gear on offer, broski. See what I did there? Heart of iron? Iron heart. Look, if you don't like to constantly be changing your gear and be bombarded with new loot, then this game might definitely not be your cup of tea. But for the loot-hungry goblins out there, like, I don't know, myself, of course, there's so much freaking loot and things to tinker around with. And I, for one, am very much looking forward to just finding better and better gear to use. On the flip side, I don't recommend you get attached to the weapons at all, early on especially, as you'll just find something new after literally every encounter. Now, later on, you'll also have the ability to change classes as well, which are freaking expensive to get, I'll be very honest with that, and maybe falls in the realm of a cash grab thing, but that's not for me to comment. You can legit just grind your way towards the class unlocks, but they are super expensive. But literally, all the aspects of how you go about mass murdering the Vulgus can be tinkered around with and changed, which is awesome, because you can really make your own dude the way you want to make them. But with all this being said, the big question is, of course, is the game fun? And so far, I would like to say yes. Absolutely, the game is fun. I'm a loot goblin, and there's so much freaking loot to collect about. I love that aspect of the game. The shooting does feel oomphy. It feels nice, even though there could be a bit more oomph to it. But that could be patched, or I can just add like a hydraulic punching thing next to my desk, so every time I shoot a shotgun, it punches me in the shoulder. The gameplay loop of taking on missions and shooting feels just fun enough to, well, keep playing. I can only imagine as time goes on, they'll add all kinds of things to boost the gameplay experience even further. But as it stands, what is here is definitely worth playing, especially since the game is free to freaking play. I haven't come across any kind of content gating so far, and I do fully expect them to do so at some point in time, at least eventually when the DLC does release. The monetization in the game so far, again, is more of the cosmetic side, even though you can just buy new classes, which you can also just unlock through grinding, like I said. But yeah, man, It's expensive as fuck to unlock, I'll be very honest with that. For the solo players out there, this is a surprisingly cinematic experience as well, and having the ability to go private in most of the instances and being able to solo the whole game pretty much that way gives the lonesome players out there some hope that devs still do care about the solo players. Time will tell if the game will have legs to be considered one of the greats alongside other online looter shooters out there, because the release schedule is tough. Summertime usually with releases of games, some games do fall unfortunately, and hopefully this game is not one of them. But enough rambling. The big question, of course, you might be asking yourself while watching this is, should you play this game? And to that I'll answer, how the f should I know, broski? I was on here to tell you my experience with the game, my early hour experience with the game. So now it's your turn to tell me your experience of this game, broski. Yes, let me know in the comments down below what you think of this game, what you think of this video as well, if you're hyped to play this game or if you're just giving it another pass. That pretty much wraps it up for me. Hope you guys have a great day wherever you're from, whichever time of day you watch this at. I've been your broski. Anyway, I don't really know how to end this video, so here's a meme I think of while editing this video. Hasta Montaising.